So the transfer window is already starting to heat up. We've had several deals go through in the past few days, all of which will be discussed in today's video. And of course, we've got a bunch more transfer rumours to go ahead and sink our teeth into. As always, make sure to have your say in the comments down below. If you've seen any other rumours that we don't mention in today's video, make sure to get them in the comments down below. And make sure to stick around and leave a like if you do go in to enjoy. Without any further ado though, let's first of all hop into some of the done deals which have gone through over the past few days. Starting out with Cardiff, who really haven't been messing around in this transfer window so far. Ibu Adams has come in from Forest Green on a free transfer after his contract had run out. Bit of an all-round midfielder really. 2.9 tackles per 90, 1.8 interceptions, 4.4 aerial duels won per 90. He did previously play for Norwich but didn't make any appearances for them in the Premier League or Championship, so this will be the highest level that he's ever played at, coming into his peak now at 26 years old as well. Jack Alnwick also joined up with Cardiff to go ahead and bolster their goalkeeping department, a move that makes sense given Alex Smithies departing this summer as well. Blackpool fans will be familiar with Alnwick as he had a loan spell with them back in the 19/20 season. 27-year-old Nigerian international Jamilu Collins has also joined up with Cardiff. He's coming over from Paraborn to add more depth into their left back position. And the Welsh club have also got a deal over the line for Ollie Tanner. If you cast your mind back to January, Spurs had serious interest in this guy, but personal terms couldn't be agreed in the end, and so Cardiff have gone ahead and capitalised on that deal. Bristol City have snapped up Oxford United's Mark Sykes on a free transfer upon his contract expiring. 8 goals, 5 assists for him in the most recent League One campaign. Pretty versatile as well. He's predominantly played his football on the right hand side but has played all across midfield as well. And we now have confirmation of Fabio Carvalho's transfer to Liverpool. I think we all knew that this was pretty much 99% confirmed, but it has now been officially registered and over the line. Really excited to see what the plan is with Liverpool in terms of Fabio Carvalho, whether there is a development plan in terms of him going out on loan instantly, or whether Jurgen Klopp wants to have him in and around the first team. He certainly made an impression on the Championship last season at Fulham, it's fair to say. But those are some of the most recent transfers that we've seen go through in the Championship. Any others that we missed out, make sure to get them in the comments down below. Without any further ado though, let's hop in to some transfer rumours. Hull City goalkeeper Matt Ingram is being linked around the Championship at this point in time, with quite a few clubs being mentioned recently. Now Hull have taken up the option on his contract to extend it by another 12 months, and there is a story going around that Hull themselves are keen to go ahead and extend his contract at Hull, but that hasn't cooled the interest of several Championship clubs. Luton been one club mentioned. Obviously we saw Matt Ingram go out on an emergency loan to Kenilworth Road for the playoffs. They've been talked about, as well as a couple of Lancashire clubs. Merseyside, North End have been spoken about, although since that interest has been reportedly cooled by the club. And Blackpool also in contention as well. Championship goalkeeper that could be on the move. Yeah, I could see Matt Ingram as a potential for a few of those clubs. A lot probably depends on Hull's stance though, and what they're looking to do with their goalkeeper department, whether they're going to look to go back in for Nathan Baxter. A bit of a bizarre story this one, but Wigan Athletic have been linked with the move for Bournemouth Jamal Lowe. Obviously Lowe previously of Wigan. When he initially made that move, it did take him a little bit of time to settle into life at Wigan, but towards the end of that season really seemed to find his stride, and obviously on the back of that got his move to Swansea and then to Bournemouth. I do expect there to be quite a lot of moving parts at Bournemouth over this summer. It is quite a big squad they're carrying at the moment. I am expecting themselves to do quite a few deals in terms of incomings, and that coincidentally is going to lead to a few going out the door as well. The vast majority of Lowe's appearances for Bournemouth in the Championship were from off the bench. 25 appearances as a substitute. In that time he scored 7 goals and got 2 assists as well. I think he'd be a fantastic asset for the vast majority of Championship clubs, and dare I say it, I think a Championship club probably a bit further up the pecking order would land a player like Jamal Lowe if he was to leave. But interesting rumour nonetheless. And speaking of Bournemouth, they are expected to dip into the Championship in terms of some of their potential incomings. One of those being Middlesbrough's star man Marcus Tavernier. Now I think that he's been a player who has really gone from strength to strength under Chris Wilder. Previously I think we all knew there was a real player in there, but he's particularly fitting into this Wilder system, and it's understandable to see why a club like Bournemouth at their current stage, going up to the Premier League, would be interested in a player like Tavernier. It would be interesting to see what would force Borough's hand in terms of negotiating a sale for this one. You'd think that they'd hold out for quite a bit. He is one of their more saleable assets in that aspect, but every player has their price, and Bournemouth certainly have the money to spend. But speaking of Middlesbrough's saleable assets, probably their most so at the moment is out on loan at Nottingham Forest. Jed Spence, and reportedly so Spurs have opened preliminary talks for the right wing back. In terms of Spurs' perspective, I think this one makes perfect sense. They are in the market for a player who can fit into that right wing back role, and Jed Spence absolutely suits that down to a T. I think it would be quite ambitious thinking probably, and I think that Forest fans will admit that. For them to have got Jed Spence back, obviously that could change with the potential promotion to the Premier League, of course, but Spurs are interested, and it will be once again interesting to see what sort of fees we're talking about here. You'd imagine anywhere from the sort of 12 to 15 mark would be reasonable. Anything over 15, you say that Middlesbrough are getting a really good deal there. Brendan Johnson is also on several Premier League clubs' watch lists at this point in time. Everton being spoken about, Brentford, you'd imagine once again would put their hat in the ring, and Spurs also are in the conversation. Now, Brendan Johnson's future very much hinges on what happens for Nottingham Forest in the playoff final. You'd imagine they'd have, the financial muscle to go ahead and keep hold of him should they be promoted to the Premier League, but if that doesn't go to plan, more than likely that these Premier League clubs will continue to circle, but this one completely dependent on what happens at Wembley for Forest. Hull City's Jacob Greaves is another youngster who is being linked with a Premier League move at this point in time, with both Everton and Leicester being spoken about. Now, Jacob Greaves had a brilliant reputation for Hull in their promotion season from League One, and I was very much of the opinion that, he needed to showcase that over a full season in the Championship, and he absolutely went ahead and did that. Took to the Championship like it was absolutely nothing. 21 years old, plays with a maturity beyond those years, and understandable to see why so many Premier League clubs are going to be in contention for a player of his quality. Now, we've spoken about Tavernier's links to Bournemouth, but there could be a couple of Bournemouth players heading in the opposite direction to Middlesbrough, as Middlesbrough are said to be admirers of both Jack Stacey and Gavin Kilkenny. Like we mentioned before with Bournemouth, they are expected to have a little bit of a reshuffle of their squad heading up to the Premier League. Gavin Kilkenny especially is a player who I personally really like the look of, particularly in those first few months of the season when we got to see a little bit more of Kilkenny in that Bournemouth squad. I think he's a player with fantastic potential, and if that midfield area is a position that Middlesbrough are looking to strengthen, someone like Kilkenny I think will go a long way in doing that. Morgan Gibbs-White was one of the best playmakers we had playing in the Championship last season, and it's looking increasingly unlikely that we'll be seeing him back in the Championship anytime soon. It seems like more than likely the plan could be at Wolves to time down to a new long-term contract, and he'll get his chance in the first team there. But he also has his other potential links. Crystal Palace have been one Premier League club who have been mentioned to him. He'd certainly fit into the model there with how they've recruited players recently, and particularly since Vieira has come in. And AC Milan have also been linked with Morgan Gibbs-White, which is an interesting one. We've already seen plenty of interest in Blackburn midfielder Joe Rothwell from the likes of Nottingham Forest, Sheffield United, West Brom and Bournemouth, who obviously previously threw their hat in the ring in the January transfer window. Would make sense for all those clubs. I'd say one of the most progressive midfielders in the Championship, and to pick him up on a free transfer is an absolute steal. For a club like Nottingham Forest especially, I think this one would really make sense, with Zinkernagel going back to Watford at the end of the season, someone who can fill in to that role as sort of the progressive midfielder in that system. West Brom as well seriously need to freshen up that midfield trio, and with Sheffield United no longer having Morgan Gibbs-White as well, whoever picks him up is getting an absolute steal. And speaking of potential bargains, Jed Wallace is also available this summer for a free transfer upon his contract expiring with Millwall. Would be an absolute bargain for whoever picks him up, and it seems like West Brom are most interested at this point in time as they continue the reshuffle under Steve Bruce heading into this summer. Cardiff were a side which were spoken about a few weeks ago. Obviously the link to Morrison makes sense in that aspect, but it seems as if West Brom are leading the race at the moment. Blackburn have gone ahead and offered Darragh Lenihan a new contract, with his current deal expiring at Ewood Park at the end of the season, although as of recording no such agreement has been made between the club and player, and he is currently evaluating his options. A move to West Brom would be one which could potentially be on the cards. West Brom have thrown their hat in the ring as they continue to look for this summer rebuild. Would be a decent move, to be honest. Both Swansea and Blackpool have been linked with the move for Manchester City winger Morgan Rogers, who you'd expect will be made available for a loan move to a Championship club once again. Spent the last season out on loan at Bournemouth, where we didn't really get to see all too much of him. Of his 15 appearances, 14 of those were from the bench, scored 1 goal for Bournemouth in that time, but would be a decent move. Obviously, Swansea looking to add a little bit more depth into those forward areas, and you'd imagine that Blackpool would look to do the same as well. Play a system that you'd imagine would suit Rodgers in terms of Blackpool like to go with that 4-4-2, two quite dynamic wingers, Swansea playing two sort of number 10s off the striker. So yeah, this would be a promising loan move for either club really if they picked him up, I'd imagine. Stoke City's Joe Allen's future is currently up in the air, and he has been linked with the move back to his former club Swansea City. Quite an interesting transfer story, this one. Russell Martin has spoken about it and has hinted that if Allen was to come in, then one of their midfield options that is currently at the club would probably have to make way in the meantime, but I certainly think there could be something in this one. After being released by West Brom, Romain Soyuz is available on a free transfer. You'd imagine there'd be quite a bit of Championship interest in this one, really. For me personally, I think Soyuz would be a player who would suit a club like Swansea absolutely down to the ground. I think he'd be an absolute dream for a manager like Russell Martin and would fit in like a glove to one of those holding positions in that Swansea setup. But he's available on the market and I'm sure won't be short of offers. Tom Ince has been released by Stoke City, so it seems more than natural that a move back to Reading could be on the cards for Ince after spending the second half of the season out on loan there, particularly after his dad was given the job on a permanent basis. Scored 2 goals, got an assist for Reading in the second half of the season. There we have it though, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. We'll have plenty more Championship transfer rumour videos coming out throughout the week and over the next few weeks and months. We've got loads to digest as this transfer window will continue to develop. But as always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Thanks for watching though, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.